Hey guys, so some of the Arrowhead developers hopped on stream to play the game and answer some questions from the community, and they decided to talk about the Stealth Coyote nerf, where they flat out admit that they did target and stealth nerf the weapon. Now, I am very glad and W to Nicholas for talking about this in the live stream. This is exactly the kind of communication I wanted and that I have been asking for. So I'm absolutely happy he did this. You know, you probably thought this was a rage bait video, but no, now that we're being honest, we're going to be able to have a nice discussion about it. So let's go ahead and play the clip from the live stream.
I mean, I could even drag that into a spicy conversation that maybe I shouldn't go into, but like talking stuff like Coyote, etc. Like, we didn't wanna touch the Coyote, and then a lot of players got into like, oh, you shadow nerfed it. I'm not sure if I should go into this, but I don't know. Here I go. I felt like the weapon also enabled that you could, like, if you have a incendiary breaker or like the cookout, you use it to put enemies on fire, right? Makes sense. It's also a shotgun. The Coyote kind of did that by one bullet and sometimes like two, and so we didn't want to touch as little as possible with that weapon, but without it being basically the cookout end of its incendiary breaker, but better. So when it takes one bullet to put stuff on fire, it comes a fire and click, and then it dies. So it's like, well, what if it takes two bullets? I guess it removes a certain playstyle to it that was nice, but we tried to keep it as intact as we possibly could, and I know some people got angry about it, but holy crap, we tried and battled it out, and I think it plays good. Someone's gonna quote me on that and drag me over the coals for it, but yeah, I'm not sure what to say about it, but I also don't feel like I should address it in some way, because a lot of people are thinking it.
No, I think it's good for them to get an answer from a dev. I think they'd probably appreciate getting that information, you know?
Yeah, it's the kind of like, some things creates very specific playstyles that is like, is this the fantasy of a weapon, of an assault rifle, to be more of a one bullet here, one bullet there, make stuff burn to death? I mean...
But I mean, isn't it also the, like, we don't want any one weapon to be like, this is obviously the best weapon in the game and should be used for everything. It should be, and at the same time, it shouldn't be, a weapon shouldn't be nerfed down so that it feels unrealistic as to what the sort of the main fantasy of it is. It should feel like this does what it's supposed to do and it fits in the game, and if it doesn't, it probably doesn't have a room in the game. Yeah, but as I say, we don't want one weapon to be like the silver bullet that can be used for everything. Yeah, it's more, different weapons should suit different playstyles and fantasies, and then you should be able to be more flexible.
It should all feel strong, and it should all feel good.
Which was like the whole balancing revamps that we have done, is to make sure that there is a bigger assortment of things for players to play around with. There is not like one obvious choice that you should always choose.
Yeah, because we had, like, in the beginning of the game, if we like throw back to before 60-day patch and stuff, there was a... It was worse then, but like when you had like, oh, you should have the energy shield backpack and the railgun, and that was like, if you didn't have it, people started kicking other people from lobbies and creating like a worse environment for the community when playing, and then it becomes a problem, right? Because like, what we don't want is to make mechanics or tune stuff so you actually create a more toxic community, or like kicking behavior, etc. So there's like, we're very worried about it. Like, we shouldn't overcorrect because it can happen, but we are always worried, like, what if this creates like unintended behavior of the community? And that is like, we don't look at like, oh, well, weapon is super overrepresented and something like that, but it's also like, what happens when that happens.
Okay, so there are a few things to touch on here, right? Number one is obviously that they did finally admit to a shadow nerf, which was a W, by the way, because we need to have an open and honest discussion about this. So the act of lying about the nerf in the first place and shadow nerfing it, that's the first topic we're going to cover. The second topic is we're going to talk about the balance of the Coyote just a little bit. The third topic we will quickly touch on is the kicking players for not using meta. We might as well just do that one right now. So that was like some clickbait that IGN was running. I literally made a video about that a year ago. And then after IGN started like dramatizing it, this literally originated from some Steam thread where some guy said, if you don't use the railgun in my lobby, I'm going to kick you. And it just got over dramatized by IGN. Wasn't even a real thing until they posted about it. Okay, that one's out of the way. So first of all, the main problem with the Coyote changes in the last patch was not even the changes themselves. Did they make it noticeably weaker? Yes, but is the weapon gutted? Did they overcorrect? Probably not. The weapon is still fine to use, at least the couple games that I played with it this patch. The main issue is the lie. The main issue is the shadow nerf, and I will explain to you why. First, let's just go ahead and run the patch notes from the other day again.
So what did you change with the Coyote?
Let's see. Where is it?
Where did you put the Coyote?
Where did I put the Coyote?
Did you put it at the...
Oh wait, we didn't do anything.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
But interesting.
Apparently, we forgot to change the Coyote. So,
Right.
So literally in the patch notes the other day, it was Nicholas himself and the other balance dev. And Nicholas also said they fought or discussed it or argued about it. They made this decision as a team. It wasn't just Nicholas himself. It was the whole team who decided to do this. And then the whole team who decided to not put it in the patch notes. And then the whole team who, for the rest of the patch notes, we listed every single damage buff that made the weapons look really good. And then when it came to the enemies, we only slightly buffed durability. We only slightly changed the fire, like the fire status on the enemies. We want open and honest and communicative feedback. One feature players have been asking for in this game is a bestiary. A bestiary is in a lot of other games. I was just playing DRG earlier tonight. They literally have a bestiary, which tells you the strengths and weaknesses of the different enemies. It tells you like which enemies you want to use fire on, which enemies you want to melee, which enemies you might want to freeze or something. These and none of this exists within Helldivers. There is like 28 hidden stats that players don't know about. They have to look up data mined information. They have to go on the wiki, and not even everything is listed on the wiki. So the number one issue with this Coyote change absolutely is the lie. Just do not lie. We will find it instantly, and then it will be a bigger problem than it needs to be. And just how I pointed out how the IGN and the kicking meta was like some over dramatized like clickbait, that was cited that they don't want to create toxic behavior. But what is happening by lying about the shadow nerf, when I make a video talking about shadow nerfs, I literally have people who become extremely toxic towards me personally and call me a liar and, oh, they didn't touch anything. And then there's this whole war within the community about glaze divers versus cry divers. And it is because of how you guys are balancing the game, because of how your communication is with us. The community is a reflection of the game that you created and just flat out the information that you give us. When you don't give me any information, then I am only left to assume, based on, quite frankly, incomplete patch notes, what your guys' intention with this stuff is. Am I wrong in my interpretation of some of your guys' intentions? Yeah, I bet I am sometimes. I think I was wrong about the flush mob changes in my video the other day, but you're not giving me all the information. So to be quite frank, I don't even think I'm to blame for being wrong about what your guys' intentions were, because I have very little information to piece together. And this is what creates toxicity within the community, because we have had this whole Glaze Divers versus Cry Divers war going on for so long. Now, the other thing as well is that, quite frankly, how much of my content do they watch? Like, did they just see the Shadow Nerf video the other day? How much of my content do they see? Do you guys sit in on the streams and listen to when I'm more in-depth talking about difficulty and the kind of difficulty I want to see in the game that I think would be cool and fun and not break the lore? Do you guys hear our conversations about why the flag should get a morale boost around it? Because the dev reply is we don't do space magic, but quite frankly, I'm playing Helldivers. Overwhelming shows of democracy suspends disbelief. When you guys first released the flag missions, the bots said everything. There were memes that was like, when we launch a nuke, bot sleeping. When we raise a flag, bot awake. Like, it was crazy, and we loved that. I know it was too crazy on the lower difficulties, but that actually created iconic moments and memorable things that I can bring up. And anytime I bring up the original Raise the Flag missions, any player who played since then remembers that moment, because just the overwhelming sense of raising the flag like created this awesome moment. And I don't know how much of these discussions that they are hearing. And that's why I want more open and honest communication. Now, quickly to talk about the Coyote and just what I thought about the balance. I even said in my video the other day that I don't think it taking, an extra bullet or two on warriors is necessarily the end of the world. The weapon is still usable. The weapon is still somewhat fun. Now, in terms of like specific balance and you guys talking about fantasy of wanting to shoot like one bullet, what I will say is that there are different players, and different players will act out their own fantasies with each weapon. So there is one player who their fantasy with that weapon is to shoot one bullet. And then the players who do not feel like using an assault rifle that way, even if the Coyote can do that, they are not going to bend to that. When I use the Coyote, bro, I'm a very like optimal player when I do strategies and stuff like that. But a lot of the times I just want to load up the game and I just want to blast the gun and use all the ammo, because that is fun. And that is honestly probably how most people play. So when it comes to the fantasy of the weapon, I would say that you shouldn't necessarily narrow it down to just a player who wants to take an assault rifle and shoot a bunch of times, because you now took away a different fantasy from players who were using it one bullet. And I would say that was a much smaller niche of people, and you might have affected less people, but you did take their playstyle away. Now, another thing I want to bring up as well is the Pummeler, because that was my favorite gun when Polar Patriots came out. This is a weapon that should absolutely be stunning enemies in very, very few bullets. It should be stunning Stalkers in 3 bullets or less. It should be stunning Alpha Commanders in 3 bullets or less. It should be guaranteeing stun on all small enemies in 1 bullet. Because why stun if I can kill? If the Coyote, if the Coyote can't be so strong that it shouldn't be it shouldn't be setting enemies on fire in 1 bullet, I think that there is a conversation around that. It could go either way. But when we're talking about a stun weapon, it should be stunning faster than the kill weapons. Like, it should be because then you answer the question, why stun when I can kill? Because it's way easier to stun. So that is the simple question to that answer. I want another Pummeler buff, and I got to throw that out there because constantly on YouTube, I have been fighting for your guys' guns. I fought tooth and nail to get shrapnel back on the Eruptor, and I never played with that gun. The Pummeler was my favorite gun. I want it back. Got to mention that here. And this is a crazy rant. I don't even know what the last point was. I think we covered all the points. But ultimately, just do not lie on the patch notes. Give us full information. Honestly, you guys are really busy right now, but put a bestiary up higher on the list. I know that takes like a UI designer and maybe it's a bit of work, but just bump it up a couple notches on the list. We do not want to go to data miners and wikis to get this information. Like when I'm trying to figure tech out to make a YouTube video about, I message like 3 different people just so I can try to get the answer quicker. I would much rather just look it up in game and then go test things and see what I can do with it. And yeah, so I hope this didn't come off too rage baity or too ranty, because I do think this was like one of the biggest first steps in opening this communication. And honestly, Nicholas, I'm a propaganda commander, bro. I'm in your creator program. I just want to talk to you guys a lot more, man. I just want to communicate with you guys because I don't feel like that communication is there. I do not feel like, I think a lot of players really feel like their feedback is not getting heard. And I do think that players like me, players like Claysthetics, players like Odo do have very unique views on this game. And the thing is, a lot of players like us who have played the game for thousands of hours and are on the hardest difficulty, a lot of players like us do really like the niche mechanics, but they do not pay off as well as the other mechanics, like the pummeler as a good example. And, you know, personally, I would like to see the fantasy working really well in the game, and that way I can go and actually use it and show off how well it works, and that it's not just a fantasy in my head, and that it is actually a fantasy that the game is making me feel like in reality. So I do appreciate that you guys have a lot of people who are worried about the fantasy, but we do need a couple of you guys over at Arrowhead to be more grounded inside of the gameplay and making sure that the fantasy is working there. All right, that's going to be it for today. See you guys later.